So welcome everyone. Let's take a moment to gather ourselves within before we start today. Yeah, so if anyone can help me with where to start from, that would be really nice.
Hi. So what I remember is that we were reading that true surrender enlarges you. I think it was a third passage. Yeah. So this one, and then the last thing I remember discussing was this quality and quantity. Like, on the page number 30, this aspect that true surrender enlarges you, it increases your capacity. So this is the quantity quality. I think where we were, but that's what I remember. Please, anybody
Okay,
else?
okay, okay. So shall we today read this first, or is it okay if we go ahead with the most important surrender? What do you suggest?
Passage and then sorry.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that I think we finished to surrender. And
okay,
yeah, we finished this to surrender enlarges you in
oh,
our last.
okay, great. So then we just read this passage, the one which have already been reflected upon, the true surrender enlarges you. We'll just read it, and then we will go to the next one, the most important surrender. Yeah, so thank you everyone, and yeah, anyone who wishes to read it out aloud for us is most welcome.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. True surrender enlarges you. By surrender, we mean a spontaneous self giving, a giving of all yourself to the divine, to a greater consciousness of which you are a part. Surrender will not diminish but increase. It will not lessen or weaken or destroy your personality. It will fortify and aggrandize it. Surrender means a free, total giving with all the delight of the giving. There is no sense of sacrifice in it. If you have the slightest feeling that you are making a sacrifice, then it is no longer surrender. For it means that you reserve yourself or that you are trying to give with grudging or pain and effort and have not the joy of the gift, perhaps not even the feeling that you are giving. When you do anything with a sense of compression of your giving, be sure that you are doing it in the wrong way. True surrender enlarges you. It increases your capacity. It gives you a greater measure in quality and in quantity, which you could not have had by yourself. This new greater measure of quality and quantity is different from anything you could attain before. You enter into another world, into a wideness which you could not have entered if you did not surrender. It is as when a drop of water falls into the sea. If it still kept there its separate identity, it would remain a little drop of water and nothing more, a little drop crushed by all the immensity around, because it has not surrendered. But surrendering, it unites with the sea and participates in the nature and power and vastness of the whole sea. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really good.
No, one interesting thing about the reading, when you read first time, it is just reading. But when we do it two, three times, then definitely it enters our, it enters into ourselves. This is beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Very true. Yeah. Okay. So since I wasn't there, but it has been reflected upon. So let's go to the most important surrender, and I'm sure there would be overlaps. The most important surrender. Yeah. So anyone who feels like going ahead and reading it on.
I'll read. The most important surrender. The most important surrender is the surrender of your character, your way of being, so that it may change. If you do not surrender your very own nature, never will this nature change. It is this that is most important. You have certain ways of understanding, certain ways of reacting, certain ways of feeling, almost certain ways of progressing, and above all, a special way of looking at life and expecting from it certain things. Well, it is this you must surrender. That is, if you truly want to receive the divine light and transform yourself, it is your whole way of being you must offer. Offer by opening it, making it as receptive as possible, so that the divine consciousness, which sees how you ought to be, may act directly and change all these movements into movements more true, more in keeping with your real truth. This is infinitely more important than surrendering what one does.
Yeah. Thank you. So we can take a pause here. Okay. Doesn't allow me to highlight. Okay. Yeah. So any thoughts, any reflections are welcome. So here, one thing which resonates here is when with Mother and Aurobindo, we hear ego is the helper and ego is the bar. So ego would be knowing what I want, my liking, my preferences. This is what I would like to learn, and this is something which I would not like to spend time in. So first, because we are getting to know ourselves in a like incoherent mass of collective suggestions, somebody saying something else, parents are suggesting something else, peers are saying something else, society wants something else. But what do I want? And there you begin to develop a kind of a separate sense of self that, okay, the society may be saying this, but this is not what I want. I want this. So I'm individualizing myself. So ego, as we understand, and as I understand in Mothers and Aurobindo yoga, is like a temporary personality, like a temporary formation, which is needed in order to know myself. And like not just like anybody said anything and I would say, okay, yes, let's do that. Anybody said anything else and let's do that. Not like that. Now I have preferences, likings, dislikings, choices. And that is how it helps us to take a path in life, that this is where I would like to be and this is not where I would like to be. So one develops a sense of individual, perception, individual identification. And then slowly, as we read with Mother and Aurobindo yoga, that once you have a well-formed personality, it could be a very strong personality, like you have very strong ideas, and this is what is right, this is what is wrong. Once that all is formed, then it has to be dissolved. It has to be offered completely. And Mother talks about this, that Mother says that it is very important that one is a very well-formed individual, because otherwise, what will you give to the divine? What will you surrender? You can't offer like a jelly-like mass to Mother when you don't even know yourself. What will you surrender? What would you say that? Take what? So now that I am well-formed individual, however well it can be, then I look at myself and I say that, okay, this is the best I could be so far with my own trials and errors. And I know that this is still very limited. That knowing is there. And then whatever little limited self you feel that you are, one just begins to walk on the path of surrender, that like the wave crashes back into the ocean, knowing that there can be more, there is more, and just being identified with this limited sense of self is not all. There is much more that is to happen, and uh, and it's very hard. This surrender of character is very hard. Those of us who have experienced, it is like it's like a sculpture is forming a, like from a rock, he is forming a kind of a deity or a form out of that rock. It hurts when some pieces that you considered important are chiseled away. They are chipped away, you because maybe they are not important anymore now. They were. So it hurts at times. It hurts because we identify with that sense of limited self, which so far I have been living identified as. So I feel that it's a good, auspicious kind of hurt if one is getting a chance of witnessing this in this very lifetime. It's very, very auspicious, and one is blessed that the divine hand is working actively on one's being. Because usually we are just saying that, oh, this is how I am, this is, who I am. If you want to live with me, or part ways. So we become solidified in our individuality. But here, after solidification, a kind of a dissolution or expansion rather, because in dissolution we become threatened that, oh my God, what would happen to me? But when we talk about expansion, which is what Mother talks about here. That where is it? So maybe I read it in the earlier one. Yeah, yeah, this one. A little drop crushed by all immensity around because it has not surrendered, but surrendering, it unites with the sea and participates in the nature and power and vastness of the whole sea. So either as a little drop, I can become confused that, oh my God, what would happen of me if I, surrender to the ocean? Or I can see that, wow, I will become the ocean if I let go of my identity, limited identity as the drop. Wow, how expansive. And that's what Mother was sharing, that, that whatever expands you, that's what we have to be. I think yeah, I think again that was from the previous one, that if one is getting expanded, we can be sure that that is a right way to go in that very moment when we are looking at it. Yeah. And also, I feel a major part of surrender is I really don't know, because when we are not able to surrender, then we have an idea in mind that I know this is how it has to happen, and it's not happening, and I'm going to turn all the tables around to make that happen. So I'm not surrendering my way in which I think. But when we open ourselves to the path of surrender, I feel that more and more we realize that how can I be sure that whatever I'm thinking is right? How can so we begin to become unsure of our own limited ideas and thoughts. And that's a very beautiful thing, although it can be threatening a little to the logical, analytical mind, that I am not sure anymore. But it's also, I feel, very opening and expansive, that wow, so it means something new has to unfold because I'm unsure. Let's see. So one becomes more porous uh, to the unfolding of life. That also, I feel, that sense of I don't know really is there, in which we are more open. Okay. Yeah, any addition of reflection, thoughts are welcome.
I I somehow really resonated with about this phase here, that we have certain ways of progressing, and it's something that really spoke to me because I was just reflecting on this from last few weeks about that. I've always been ambitious in my career, in my work, and in research, always, okay, I want to publish, I want to present, and um I used to do this, do that, and different things. And but when looking from the spiritual lens, I thought, and Mother always said that ambition is something that is a big bar in the progress. And I used to say, what is the antidote to it? On one side, I really see that it is actually a progress in my professional development that I'm doing. But on the other hand, I really like that if somebody says, "Oh, wow, your paper was really nice," I really like that. That's something that drives me as well. That my work is being appreciated, and I'm trying to create an impact through my work. But if I look behind, then there is this sense of ambition behind my endeavors, and is it really progress? And then for from last few months, I was thinking, maybe I need to surrender it. I really need to surrender this drive of being ambitious, of progressing, and see how it happens. And now, actually, last week I was thinking, okay, this has really gone down now. I'm not really doing it. I don't feel like now I have to go and look for publications. I might go read Aurobindo and Mother's book. That drive is not there. But then a revelation came that this is not surrender too, because now, in the name of surrender, tamas has replaced ambition. So it's tamas. it's like I don't feel like doing it anymore, you know. So I mean, surrender is so complex that sometimes in the face and in the curtain of surrender, there could be so many of these forces that are at play, ambition or, you know, tamas in my case, because I really feel that now I feel it's okay, doesn't really matter, you know. And sometimes I get delayed in some missions. Of course, there are other things I'm dealing with in life too, but that's something I've realized, that to be so conscious that you're really able to see what's happening. Yeah, because in the name, and mother actually says, even differentiates, because I read about surrender and she differentiates between active and dynamic, dynamic surrender, you know, an active surrender, not a dull state, which is tamas, because I really felt, oh, this is really tamas, this is not surrender. So yeah, something.
Yeah, yeah. So I think very important what you just shared, and because there is a very thin line, and you are totally correct when, you know, in the name of letting go of ambition, one can become tamasic and dull. Like, what's the point? I mean, why would I publish papers? You know, I don't want to be ambitious because mother says it's not good to be ambitious. So, Sri Aurobindo talks about, it's beautiful, you know, their words are so full of power. He talks about Jivan Mukta. Some of us may have gone through his writings, and that really, really resonates with me because we don't know any other way of how can we be still active if there is no desire and ambition. We don't know that space because that's not what we have usually seen, that somebody is working really very hard and yet absolutely disinterested. We have not seen that very often. You know? What we have seen is, yes, if a person has vigor and, you know, like a zeal towards life, there is a lot of personal interest and motivation. Or either people who we have seen that maybe they call themselves spiritualists, but maybe in worldly action they have taken a back seat. We have not seen the middle way that commonly, that a person does not have desire, the person does not have ambition, and yet he is putting himself forth in work. That we have not seen, and that is what is to be done. That's the space that all of us have to touch. And what Snehi was sharing, that why is ambition, talk about it, you know, think about it. A person who is ambitious for his own little self and little family, what would he do? He will try to corner anyone else who is not his family. It's a violence. If I am ambitious about my lab, that I would want that the research paper has to just come out of this lab and it cannot get published first hand from the other lab. So I'll corner, you know, I'll like elbow, a teacher hat, you know. So we don't know a way of collaborative work. We only know ways of competition.
That's where I was thinking as well, that, you know, rather than how can I replace ambition with collaboration?
Ah,
So rather than thinking that, I was thinking about this, that rather than thinking, oh, I have to publish, why can't I include my fellow colleagues and say, let's
hmm,
do it together,
hmm,
where we all are sharing that space,
hmm,
you know,
hmm,
to do something. There's still desire behind it. It's still not something which is coming out of the state of disinterestedness, but at least it's still an effort towards
hmm,
transformation, a small effort, and that's what all we can do. Like, you
hmm.
know, so that's really
Yeah,
good about, because
yeah.
this was thinking that ambition then takes tamas. So it's not really a step forward. In fact, it's backward, because mother still says that, but you know, rajasic desires are still better than being in tamas, because tamas
Hmm,
is completely being in unconscious, you know.
hmm,
So that works
yes,
well.
yes. And she has also shared, you know, when talking about I think we were sharing yesterday when she's talking about being in solitude or maybe concentration or meditation. She says that don't overdo it because mostly us ignorant ones, when we overdo meditation and concentration, we fall into tamas. We don't realize it. She's talking to us. She's not talking to a yogi who may actually benefit from his solitary, retreat and meditation. But we, us individual, ordinary mortal beings, what we do is in the name of meditation and contemplation, we, as you said, we have a tendency to fall into tamas, and we don't recognize that it's even more dangerous. So that's why she says that it's very important to put yourself into work. And that's what we see in our letters, to the mother and from people who are asking her questions, that or different departments are formed and everybody is working. It's not that people are just contemplating and meditating. Everybody, no matter what is the age, because through work we get to know of our limitations and where I need to work and weaknesses, and still, oh my God, I still get jealous. Because if I'm solitary, how would I get to know that I'm still getting jealous? Oh, I still have desire. Oh, I still are so much interested in the results of this, whatever, that I'm a part of. Oh, I still want to have more respect and name and fame. How would I get to know all that if not for these interactions? So mother has never said that, it's like alone and that's it. We have to put that divine light in whatever little work that we are doing. We don't have to shy away from work. And if you are interested, it would be nice to read, if you type incarnate word, if you type Jivan Mukta, maybe you can get many insights from Sri Aurobindo there. He talks about that. That what is a space in from which we can work, where actually it's a desireless working. I'm not seeking anything from this work. I'm just doing because this is right. I offer this work to the divine. Just for that offering, I work with all sincerity. Name, fame, respect, publications, they may come as a byproduct, but that is not the main focus. From there, I don't derive my sense of fulfillment. My sense of fulfillment comes from the infinite fountain to which I have connected myself with. Then I would not depend upon the sense of self coming from the publication. So it will not also disappoint me or make me very aggrandized if a publication comes out. So ambition is violence. If we, in mortal sense, we look at it, how people who get very ambitious egos, like, they just are ready to do any kind of torture and violence because they just want the expansion of their own business. That's it. It doesn't matter. Earth may go to hell and the environment may go to hell. All that I want is my business has to prosper. Very ambitious. So that's where it gets a little violent, I feel. But there must be more to it. Yeah. So with Mother's Yoga, this is what I think all of us who feel ready, we have to again and again, constantly, moment by moment, open ourselves to Mother's force that I don't know, but I know that you know best. So I'm just opening myself to your force. Inwardly, we can make that gesture. So Mother says that if you do not surrender your own very own nature, and if we are conscious, we from time to time there are moments in our lives where we recognize the limitations of our character. All of us do. If I am too outspoken or extrovert, that has its own limitations. If I am too introverted, that has its own limitations. So from time to time, if we are conscious, we do recognize our limitations. But when we are recognizing those limitations, we know that no, the journey doesn't end here. It does not have to end here. So you open your futile efforts, you open your helplessness to the mother, that this is how far I can go by myself. But after this, and even what I'm considering, that how this far I have come by myself, that also is grace only. What can move without grace? But just talking of conscious effort which I have been putting, that this is how far I can come. But after this, I feel so helpless. What do I do with this nature that I have? What do I do? Because I see its limits and incapacity. So then when we become conscious of it and we feel like almost I feel helpless, we can open ourselves to the mother. And mother says that otherwise it will not change if you don't surrender your whole character to the mother, to the divine. So you have certain ways of understanding. We have all, no matter how expansive our view may be, we all have limited designer windows through which we look. There are some may be heart shaped, some may be square, hexagon. They may be beautiful windows through which we may look, but still there are windows. It's not like a full view. So you have certain ways of understanding, which again will depend upon our conditioning, the culture from which I am coming. We don't even know how badly it conditions our parents, our peers, people who have been close to me while growing up, what I have been reading, watching throughout, this journey called life. So that forms me, that molds me in certain ways. So you have certain ways of understanding, certain ways of reacting. I think all of us know that. Certain ways of feeling, almost certain ways of progressing. That I think that's what we were discussing. And above all, a special way of looking at life and expecting from it certain things. That if I do this, this is what I should get. It's not that I'm getting that, but this is what I must get. I mean, this is so obvious. That's what we say. That this is so obvious that this has to happen. So that's my way of looking at the world. But for me, it is very obvious. I don't even question why do I think like that. So that's why mother says that ask, why do I think like that? Why do I feel like that? Well, it is this you must surrender. And how will I surrender if I don't become conscious of it? So the first thing is that to look like this microscopic lens, which is always judging people, it just turns within, towards myself. And no matter whatever is the external trigger out there, I look at myself and my reactions to what is happening out there. And I ask myself, why? Oh, or oh, this is how I think. Oh, this in this pattern my thoughts go, or in this pattern my feelings go when that and that happens. So we recognize, and that's what we surrender, because that's our boundary. The way in which I'm feeling, the way in which I'm thinking, that is my boundary. That's my, it's like my formation, my shape. So how will I offer a shape when I don't know my shape? So it's very important, and with mother we read that it's very important you become conscious of your thoughts, feelings, inner movements, the way we react, respond. So mother says, well, this is what you must surrender. And that is if you truly want to receive the divine light and transform yourself, it is your whole way of being you must offer by opening it, making it as receptive as possible, so that the divine consciousness, which sees how you ought to be, may act directly and change all these movements into movements more true, more in keeping with your real truth. So I don't know what is my psychic individuality, but the divine knows. No? So, and I can totally trust the divine that yes, he knows, she knows. I don't know, that's for sure. And that's where the opening comes. That I don't know, but there is someone, if I can call that someone, who knows. And to that someone, I open myself. So, like a sponge, either I can be like a rock, very hard, solid, rigid, not wanting to transform, or I can have little pores, like even stones have pores actually. All of us are aware of that. But it's like not as easily wettable if kept in water like a sponge. It's not like a sponge. So can I become soft and supple like a sponge, like so porous to receiving grace and to open myself up that yes, I have absolute faith in the divine and I open myself to you. So we make pores in our walls. We are walled characters. So in that wall we make like little holes. Like don't prick yourself with a pin, but yes, inwardly, we open ourselves to the divine because we know that she knows. And Mother is saying that that is if you truly want to receive the again, not for everyone in this very lifetime. I think that's also very important. So we can't say that it can't be forced on anyone. Only if I come to this point that I realize the futility of the limited self that so far has been benefiting me, but now not anymore. Then we come to this point that we begin to open. So that's why Mother is adding, I feel, that is, if you truly want to receive the divine light and transform yourself, it is your whole way of being you must offer. Not like only this much and rest I keep to myself. That would not work. Yeah, so anything here before we go ahead to the next one, next passage? Anyone?
Yeah, just shortly, how when we once we start reading Life Divine, it appears like this thing that you think it's that, but it's more and more and more, right? Like, I wantingly want to limit myself, constrict myself because I feel certain solace, certain comfort, certain level of control, knowing that this is me. And yet there's always more, and you have no idea what you are. So the whole thing sometimes just feels contradictory. So here, firstly, we are, it's like that, okay, first you're following everything and everyone. Then you say, no, 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 this is what I like, this is what I dislike. And that's the journey that you first stand out. Then you decide, okay, you want to do this and you want to offer yourself. And then when you start offering the things that you think you want to offer, then it's like offer your whole being, your nature, your character. So it appears quite contradictory, right? That first, why did I have to develop it if I have to offer it? Even in terms of children, how it's often said that first, when a child is born, we are like, okay, this is your father, this is your mother, this is your aunt. We give the child the whole relations, we put it on him and her. And then slowly it's like, okay, this, not this, not this, not this. You're not just a child, you're not just a son, you're not just, it's like, that neti neti. So the whole picking up is also important and the giving up. I mean, that's the journey, although it might sound contradictory. And I think once when one starts touching the space of, how it's said here that an instrument of the divine, right? The instrument does not have a character of its own. Whoever plays it, they play it the way they want to, right? So this thing that you were sharing, how that, okay, I do it this way, or this is, I'm a speaker, I'm not a listener, or, I am whatever I would tell myself to be. But then there is so much of I in it. And here, this is all about offering that I so that I cannot again be restricted to the things I think I am, not in terms of giving up my identity, but so that the job can be an ocean. I can be anyone who you want me to be, so that the work can be done, so that there's expansion and flexibility, and nothing is impossible. And on ambition, Acharya Prashant once had shared a very beautiful example. He had, like, not beautiful, but quite drastic. He had said that, say, if there's a person who's a road contractor, and he, obviously, how in India we know that lot of times funds are kept for yourself, and limited amount of funds are actually used in the construction and all. So he's building highways, and then his daughter is, say, getting married, and he wants to send her daughter to, say, an international destination for her honeymoon. So he further limits the funds of the construction of the highway, and then of course the highway is in pretty bad shape. And say next day, a person is riding, on a motorbike, and he loses balance, the road is bad, and he dies. So who do you blame, right? Like, what was the price that was paid for that, I don't know, that honeymoon ticket? Who paid with his life? Just that thing that when I want something, I don't see what all I am doing to others and stuff. And just as I don't know, like, with this me and you and how you were talking about that cornering, that you just want to move ahead, not thinking what we are doing as a whole to us, to everyone. That was very striking and very.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go ahead and take up this much, the second half of this, starting from it is not what one does. So anyone who can go ahead with this.
Should I read? Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, please
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you. So I'll read. It is not what one does. What one does is very important. That is evident. That is the most important thing. But what one is, whatever the activity, it is not quite the way of doing it, but the state of consciousness in which it is done, that is important. You may work, do disinterested work without any idea of personal profit. Work for the joy of working. But if you are not at the same time ready to leave this work, to change the work or change the way of working, if you cling to your own way of working, your surrender is not complete. You must come to a point when everything is done because you feel within very clearly in a more and more imperious way that it is this which must be done and in this particular way, and that you do it only because of that. You do not do it because of any habit, attachment, or preference, nor even any conception, even a preference for the idea that it is the best thing to do. Else, your surrender is not total.
Yeah, if anyone has any thoughts, you're welcome.
You know how we always talk about a sticky nature, right? Like we stick, we stick, we stick, and we think we are evolving, but in our evolutions also, we stick to the new thing we think is now is what I am ready for. So this whole para, I think for me, just spoke about that, right? That we have to continue to do things. Again, we are doing things, and yet if we can look at the sticking aspect, right? Like, because if I'm ready to give it up anytime, anything, that means that my identity or my anything of me, like me, my work, my way of being is not dependent on it, right? So, like, you know, how again they say that the race was won by the one who did not run. As in, I'm ready for anything, like, I'm doing it because it has a greater purpose, and yet I don't have to stick to that, oh god, I'm doing something so great, because then we don't even realize when it comes, right? We don't even realize when it sticks. And there are so many examples of masters and mystics in which they say, right, that I'll give it up in a second. Like, I think you have often given the example of Meher Baba, right? Like how he used to start huge projects, and in between he would say that, okay, that's it, we stop here. That's very, it's like a blow, right, to most people, because when we say, okay, we are working towards something, a lot of us depends on it, right? Our identity, our state of being. I remember the first time when, you know, after my MBA, I was without a job, like when I had again moved back to India, when I would write emails and I would not have anything to write below my name. You know, there was no title, there was no, and it's such a frivolous thing. And yet it stuck me for a while that, oh God, you know, there's nothing, it's just my name. So it's like the things that we stick to are pretty petty, and yet they give us a lot of fake standing that, okay, I am so and so. So it's really nice if one can remember this again and again, that if it has to go, be it. If it has to be stopped, be it. I'm doing it till I'm, you know, I am supposed to, or if till where I'm guided. And if I have to drop it today, be it. Like with grace and acceptance, one is able to do that. It's really hard if one thinks about it because of the stickiness that I become. Thank you.
Yeah, so true. You know, we just talking about this stickiness, you know, we live with a broken sense of self, like I am incomplete. And because we identify with that broken sense of self, that yes, I am incomplete, you know, I feel incomplete. So, how do I complete myself? Because that incompletion eats us up. You know, we were not easy with that feeling. First, I identify with that unworth and incompletion. when I begin to believe totally that yes, it is absolutely true, I am incomplete. Then on the top of it, I say that I am uneasy with the incompletion. But because how can I be incomplete? I have to be complete. And then in a distorted way of action, because I don't know, I'm ignorant, I don't know which way to head to find this completion. Whatever comes my way, what you were sharing, I stick to it because that gives me a sense of self, and it adds on to me either a post, as you were sharing, a title, a role of a daughter, mother, daughter-in-law, child, any role that I stick to, name, my promotion, my work, what I am in front of public, and all of that becomes so important because that gives me a sense of self, which I otherwise I feel that it's broken. Mm. And that's why the sticking uh, is there, because what if that gets lost from me? Then I'll be incomplete again, and I don't want to be incomplete. So we don't question, first of all, our belief in that incompletion. Then in order to complete ourselves, we go to all the possible places which never, ever, ever, ever can fulfill us. And even if they give a sense of fulfillment, we are always like addicted to that, because the moment it is taken away, who am I without that? Hmm? So that threatening is there for the ego. So it's a very interesting thing to reflect upon. And if we can leave that stickiness, then everything actually becomes very simple. That just for the sake of doing things, whatever right I can do in this moment, that's why I do. It's not that my sense of self is dependent upon that. Hmm. And this mother has shared at other moments also that the state of consciousness from which I do things, only that matters. And there was a very interesting story which I had once shared, I heard in a talk by Alokda only, where he was sharing that there was, I'm sure it is coming out of some scriptures only, some kind of scriptures it is coming from, but I can't remember which one. So he was sharing that there, yeah, I think it is a story told by Ramakrishna, if I'm not wrong, Sri Ramakrishna. So he was sharing that there was a prostitute and there was a sadhu type person, and they were like next door neighbors. And the sadhu would always keep an eye on that prostitute and like really think very bad of her, that what kind of a life is she living and how unpious, and she is not worthy at all, and I am the one who is superior, and look at my quality of life and look at her like that, so always looking at her like with that kind of a judgment, while she on the other hand was totally oblivious to the happenings around her. And the only thing that she did was, since she had no other way and means to earn money in that moment, and that was the only way coming in front of her in that moment. So she said that, okay, I know that you are everywhere, the divine, and in every person that I touch, I meet you. And every person that she would touch, she was doing it in an act of meeting the Lord. And then they say that they kind of pass off, I think, yeah, they pass on and they drop the body dead, and both of them are like on the door of heaven and hell. And uh, I think who is standing at the door, I don't know, he's asking that you have to go to hell while she has to go to the heaven. And then he's asking why, and this is what is shown to him, that your intentions, your state of consciousness, although on the outer effect, it may be looking that you are more pious and sacred and more elite, but inwardly she was a sadhu. Inwardly she was more devoted and had the right state of being. Yeah, so something like that. I'm sure I didn't tell the story absolutely correct, but yeah. So that was a very touching story for me when I heard it the first time.
Also similar with Draupadi as well, when she reached the doors of heaven and she demanded entry, and the people were guarding and said that how can you, out of everybody be allowed in heaven? You were married to five men. That's a blasphemy. Committed the sin. And she said that five men, no, I was not married to five men. I might have married five men, but I just loved one all my life. And they said that, oh, you loved Arjun, and she said, no, I didn't love Arjun. And said, okay, so maybe Yudhishthir, the one who always stayed by the dharma and kept on saying the five names of the husband, and she kept saying no. And then he said, my goodness, now you loved somebody else out of your husband, you definitely are not allowed. And she said, I loved the one who is in everybody, and that is Krishna. And and that is why. And then the moment she said it, Krishna himself comes and takes her along in the abode of heaven. So that really touched me as well, that that how the character of Draupadi can be seen from a different lens, where she just saw Krishna as a companion in every phase of her life. Very similar to what you shared.
I've often I've traveled a couple of places, not many, but a couple of places in a hope, at times in a hope that there is more piousness and sacredness in places where in my mind I think that, oh, this should be more pious, this should be more purified, sanctified a place. Here people would be more pure. But unfortunately, that's not what I have found so far. Again, with my limited journey, I see that our limited conceptual mind, the egoistic mind, it is just the same everywhere, just the same. So within the ashram premises, within the Sri Aurobindo society premises, things may be happening which I, in my innocence, I thought this cannot happen here, at least. But the human egoistic mind is the same. So and then that also gives me a lot of promise that then it means that if I want to keep on this path of purification, then this can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be Pondicherry or India or any. Of course, every atmosphere may have its own vibration. That's a different thing, But it 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 just made me more inspired that if I want to do work and if I work with my own self, with my own purity, it can just be anywhere. It is not really that much dependent on the physical atmosphere and the people around that much. Of course, everything has its own place, but yeah, to a degree, I would say that we can find the most purified and sanctified beings in the middle of dirt and filth, which you never imagined that this could be the place. So, what Mother was sharing, that what matters is the state of consciousness. It doesn't matter what outwardly the work you are doing. So it gives us a lot of promise. It gives us a lot of inspiration, I feel, that we can always continue to do our own sanctification, purification, no matter wherever we are. We don't have to keep postponing it in the name and hope for a better place, which we at times do. Yeah, so any additions here? So this is very, very, I feel very, very important what in the beginning Taru was touching upon, that if at the same time I am not ready to leave all at once, okay, today abandoning, yes, abandoning without any single thought, then mother says that your surrender is not complete. So no second thought. And what the example she was sharing of Meher Baba, I've read with Meher Baba's anecdotes that he would initiate a large project of involving many laborers and sadhaks and people and devotees. Like we are creating a building and a bhavan, a place has to be built up. And then one fine day, when it's half built, he would say, abandon. We are not doing it anymore. So people who are still having like, okay, where is it going? Let me just look at the end. They would be like startled that how can it be? It hasn't gotten finished. We haven't reached anywhere. But the task is over. And same thing we see in Buddhism, where, if I'm not wrong, Milarepa, when he was learning from his teacher again and again asked him to build certain things. And then when he would show them to his teacher, he would just say, build it all over again. Then build it all over again, then build it all over again. So, and that was the way in which he was purifying him. That's what is said. That in that process of building and letting go of the building and then letting go of the building, with so much devotion, sweat and blood you prepared. That was a way of his teacher to get rid of all the burden of his negative karma and to enter him on the path of purification. Same we also see with the Buddhist, many rituals they have where they create like a beautiful mandala over months and months. They are creating this mandala very intricately, delicately, and creating a beautiful formation. And then when the mandala is complete, they are blowing it off. They're not holding on to it. So you create something beautiful and you just like blow it off. Not saying that, oh my God, just let me take a picture. It was my work, and how can I? Maybe one more day, let it stay. So no attachment at all. You did it with a sense of devotion, and you did your best. And when it's time to let go, you let go immediately without any second thought. So that's really wow. Like, okay, this is also our possibility. And I think we then come back to the initial thing that we were discussing. Either I'm doing research or anything. If I can do it, like put all my heart, if I really feel that it's the thing that I really want to do, putting all my heart into it, putting all my effort into it, and yet not wanting anything from it. Is that possible? It's doing just for the sake of beauty, like delight, because I find, it's the right thing to do for me, and I take delight in doing this. That's it. There is no other purpose. It's not a means to an end. That once over, it will give me a publication, and publication will bring me name, fame, respect, whatever, add on to my title. Rest all would be a side product, byproduct. So that is our possibility. I think it's beautiful. And then we are less violent if we work like that. We are less violent.
That's also they say about parenting as well. That exactly what you said, that you offer what you have to offer, the best of the things that you can give to the seed, and then just let it go at a certain state and just have trust that it is going to turn out however it has to, and not how you had imagined it to be. Because that's a very long years of labor and we all get attached. I'm not a mother yet, but I've seen it's something that gets really hardwired because you're conditioning and you want children to be conditioned in their own way, maybe spiritual as well. and that test of putting your, like what you said, putting all your effort, all your values, beauty, everything into them, and then just leaving it. I mean, if one can do it, it's beautiful. The relationship becomes beautiful.
Okay, so any last reflection, comments, anyone on this? I think we can end here today. The most important surrender. Yeah, any last
Yeah,
comments?
about cling to your own way of working, what mother says, and live at the same time ready to live this work. So I was reading about Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and at the time, he was established there in Dakshineshwar, and he had totally surrendered to Goddess Kali. And but at the same time, he was in his room, and he was doing something important. He was talking to somebody or something, but he overheard the leave the place, leave the temple complex immediately. He heard this, and immediately he got up and he took one dhoti in his armpit, and he was going out of the temple complex. Then at the gate there is a security chap. They asked, "Where are you going?" So because he is the main person, he has been treated like God. The God himself is going out. So then that everybody was alerted and all this, and they came. That why are you going? He says, "I got the order that I have to leave this place immediately, so I'm going." So the attachment, that clinging to the particular thing, and he was very important, but he never thought that he is so important. But he was ready to go. If God desires, once I surrender 100%, that's the mother is telling, it is not complete. It becomes incomplete actually. Complete means yes, the order you have heard and you're going. Actually, that was for his sister's son who was there to look after him along with him. He did some mischief, and it was decided by Rani Rasmani's all this secretary and all this, that he has to leave because he should not be there with Ramakrishna. So he was told to go away. Or there was a talk. Somebody asked him that you have to leave the place. So that he overheard, and he thought that he has been asked to go, and he is ready to go immediately, then and there, whether you have taken food or not, or whether whichever state you are, and in the same dress and same time. So that should be the surrender and cleanliness. Your change of work or attitude of work or whatever we have developed over a period of time, a style of working and all this, that has to change because we get attached to everything. When we are in office and I have done something and it has been praised by everybody, and so I feel this is the right way and this is the only way. That ego comes and all this, and if anybody would have been in my place, probably they will not be able to perform so much as I am doing. So all these things comes, okay? And you get attached, cling to the place and all. But in case of surrendering, all this will obstruct the total surrendering. It's not a complete or total surrender. That's what mother is hinting here. Thank you.
That was such a beautiful sharing. Can I just ask a question to everybody, because that keeps coming to my mind, that what like, from all of your wisdom, do you really think that such a state, like you mentioned, of of Ramakrishnan, we have read about so many other saints as well, is it something that you're born with, or you can really cultivate it?
I think we are often looking at just this little frame of this lifetime. And if I say that if somebody is born with it, I don't see the work in the previous lifetimes he may have done. So I can very easily say, oh, that guy is born with that. No, but I am not born with that. How do I do that? But then we are often times looking just at this limited, this lifetime. I have that feeling, But if we consider ourselves to have lived more lifetimes, then we would know that nothing comes easy to anyone, even if the person who we call a genius in this lifetime, as if he was born with this gift. He was born with this gift because, the work has been continuing in the previous lifetime. So there is not, I feel that there is nothing like we are born with it. And if we say that we are born with it, the work has been, being carried on in the previous ones. So cultivation then comes into the picture, that if I consider that yes, this will make my life beautiful and it is important for me to cultivate, then we will cultivate. And if we find an inclination there, interest there, we will cultivate. And this is something that we will not lose. Yeah, any deep cultivation that we do, that is assimilated by the psychic being. Our deepest uh, touches in this life. That's why it's good to live a deep life, a life lived from the core and depth of our heart, because those experiences is what the psychic being is assimilating. That gets carried over. Yeah, that's what I feel.
To me, it appears that both are correct. Because if I'm ready, if I know myself, if I understand who am I, and if I have found out the correct way of doing the thing, and so I can practice myself, and then by practice I can be perfecting myself. It is possible, but probably some guidance may be required, because I may not be always judgmentally. I may not be knowing whether I'm doing the right thing or not. But once that road is clear, and if I practice, so it can be cultivated. It can be cultivated over a period of time, and it can be. So there are so many in the present state. They have surrendered. Totally, they have surrendered, and they're moving away. Somebody hasn't gone to Himalayas, or somebody is staying in that family and doing everything. They're there, so we may not be counting them, because outside from external look we cannot find out. There may not be any statistical data available, but it is possible. Whatever we want to do, whatever we want to achieve, that everybody has got that quality, strength, and energy inside to change ourselves. The only thing is that we have to do sadhana. If I know that this is the right way and I have to move in this, and so probably we can put all our resources at our disposal in that particular channel, and we can cultivate that. So that's why to me it appears that both are correct. It may be inborn quality as well as it can be cultivated. Thank you.
Yeah, so any last comments before we take a moment of silence, anyone? Okay, so let's just take a moment of silence to share and dedicate the merit. Whatever good and meritorious we may have accumulated through all the reading, reflection, listening, we share that with all sentient beings. May everyone have contentment, joy, wellness, and progress in life. Yes, thank you, everyone.